First of all, a new bot will be created. To do this, click the Add New Bot button. Next, a name and an image are chosen for the newly created bot. After the bot is created, it is ready to have its dialog flow defined. For this, click on the corresponding button as shown. As this is a new bot, there are no interactions created so far. The first time you edit it, a form is presented with the available interaction types. The available interaction types are the following. Information request is used to gather information from users. The bot types some text and awaits a reply from the user. Multiple choice presents a text with alternatives. The user is expected to choose one of the alternatives and the flow follows the path according to it. Information exhibition is an interaction that displays information in different ways, be it defined in the flow itself or information from the knowledge base. Gateway execution is a very important interaction that supports integration to external systems or language classification services. It can also be used to provide dynamic logic to the dialogues. Qualification is a resource to build surveys, assessments and quizzes. Scores are defined for questions, so the resulting grades are automatically accounted by Intelichat. Connection is an interaction that enables integration to pre-configured external systems. Let's start with an information request, where the bot will ask for some reply from the user. The first thing to do after an interaction is created is to configure it. In the newly created interaction there are icons representing the interaction type and whether the current interaction is the entry point of the bot. To configure the interaction, just click on it with the right button and then on Configure menu. First thing to be configured is a name for the interaction. This will be useful for identification in the flow drawing. In our example, let's name it Department. Next, in the chatbot text field, it is defined the text that will be typed by the bot during the dialogue. Our bot will ask the user what is his or her department. In the internal validation field, a validation may be defined for the user's reply, as for a valid date, number, etc. If the validation is not successful, a text to be typed by the bot is defined next in the form. Integration ID may be defined for advanced configuration purposes. This is to define a variable that can be used further in the flow for integration or dynamic flow purposes. The Create and Update Attribute section enables gathering of users' replies as attributes. With this configuration active, replies from users are stored in a database. Here we go. Our first interaction is ready, we just have to save it now. Back to the dialog flow configuration, we are ready to create the next interaction. That is, the sequence in the flow. It is done by clicking the plus icon in the already created interaction. A screen is presented where we must choose the next interaction to be created. In our example, we will create a multiple choice interaction. As we can see, the newly created interaction is presented as a gray box and a different icon. We repeat the previous sequence of right button, configure menu. As we can see, the first part of the configuration form is similar, where a name for the interaction and a text to be typed by the bot are defined. Our bot will type "How can I help you?" In this interaction, there is a special configuration that enables simulation of bot's think time and time to type. Next, there is an important definition. In the field answer, if the user types something that does not match a configured alternative, it is defined a text that the bot will type when the user types a reply that is not compliant to the alternatives to this multiple choice question. Don't worry, the alternatives were not created yet, we will do it soon. Display button back as an alternative will exhibit a button along with the alternatives to this interaction, enabling the user to navigate back to the previous interaction. The next fields are similar as those defined in the previous interaction. As we save this interaction, we are back to the dialog flow configuration. The last interaction that was created was a multiple choice. As explained earlier, a multiple choice is an interaction that presents a text and alternatives to the user. This means that now, clicking in the plus icon, alternatives will be created. The first field to be configured, The interaction name is also the alternative that will be presented to the user in the dialog with the bot. This means that the value defined in this field will be exactly what will be displayed to the user as an alternative to this question. Previously in our bot we have defined that it would ask the user how could it help. Let's now define our first alternative, that will be report a problem. Synonyms can be configured to enable the user to type something instead of clicking on an alternative button. Each synonym that is defined, if matched by what the user types, will have the same effect than clicking on the alternative. The display format section is optional. It enables the configuration of alternatives that can be displayed with images and description. This is similar to the carousel format of Facebook Messenger. Next, a URL link can be defined, along with the description for it. This is useful for exhibition of additional information from external sources, as a web page for instance. Last, the next type of interaction to be created in the flow is defined, or, alternatively, a detour in the flow to an existing interaction. Back to the dialog flow editor, we can drag the interaction boxes as we wish to improve the appearance and to clarify the understanding. This is done by clicking on the box and drag it while holding the left button pressed. Let's now create another alternative to the previous multiple choice. This will be request a service. So far we have seen the basics on how to define and configure interactions. We have defined an information request and a multiple choice in sequence, with alternatives. Each alternative, in the respective sequences, have also multiple choices. We could configure alternatives for problems to be reported and services to be requested, for instance. A typical flow can assume this appearance.